May it please the court. This man, on September 2nd, 2016, murdered Laura Lott. He shot Michaela Smith in the chest. Both of them were 13 years old. You can determine from that evidence that this man really gets his ticket punched, shooting innocent 13-year-old girls. You can't tell, according to the experts, by the way he looks. He has this flat effect. Flat effect is just another way of saying no conscience. Doesn't show any remorse. He hadn't spoken of any remorse to the experts. Hadn't shown any remorse to the experts. When some of you had tears and witnesses were crying in this courtroom, no remorse over here. No conscience over there. Folks, it's my duty at this time to just briefly go over the evidence brought to you on behalf of the state of Texas that proves this defendant committed these crimes. And I bet that proof somewhat shows that he knew what he was doing and he knew it was wrong. Now, our first witnesses, we brought you 5 witnesses who were children at the time of this event. And they were children. There were 12. 4 of them were 12. 1 of them was 13. And those are children, and I'll explain that to you. Most of them probably agree. But when they came in here, they told you what I call their unwanted memories. Oh, they wish they could forget it. They wish they didn't have to live it. But folks, they hit that stand and told you exactly what happened 2 years later. Like it only happened yesterday or eternities ago. They'll never forget. First, we brought you Garrett. Garrett was a 12-year-old on his way home from school, walking east on Tower Street. He's on the sidewalk. A utility truck passes him, and then he remembers a gold SUV came up. It was a Tahoe. His dad, a police officer, used to drive a Tahoe with the department. He recognized it. The Tahoe slowed down, made a turn, and he noticed it stopped there at the alley in the back of Tower Street. And he looked over, and the window came down, and a gun stuck out. And then shots were fired. A shot was fired, and then more shots. And he saw Lauren, and Lauren fell. And he heard girls screaming. And he ran. He ran as fast as he could down the street to a neighbor's house, banged on the door, no one was there. Then he ran toward his house and saw his dad was home. His dad wasn't normally home at that time. He ran into the house, and what did he do? Hugged his dad. That's a 12-year-old. And remember, Maureen asked him about Lauren. Did you know Lauren Lott? Well, I sure did. I knew who she was. They weren't close, remember? And I think we all smiled, and sometimes in a case like this, it's good if you can smile. Remember, 6th grade boy and an 8th grade girl, they would know each other. Yeah. But what does that tell you that's a little deeper? It tells you they're children. That 2 years makes a whole lot of difference when you're that age, doesn't it? Doesn't it? Our age, except for you, some of you younger women, 2 years doesn't make that big a difference. 40 years doesn't make that big a difference. But back then, friends and who you run with, 2 years, a world of difference. Those are children. After Garrett testified, you heard from Elijah, and Elijah said he was walking like he did every day after school with Hope and Crystal and Ashton. They were walking toward Hope's house. He'd go that far, and then he'd go into his place. He lived a block away from there. And then he sees a gold SUV at the end of the alley. Lauren was closest to the end of the alley. Michaela's a little bit behind her. The SUV stops. And they start, he hears a popping sound. Didn't see a gun or anything. But Michaela turned and started running. Kyra had already taken off before the popping sound. He didn't know what was going on, but it scared him, and he ran into Hope's backyard. And then the other kids came in there that he was walking with, and they couldn't get in. The patio door was locked. They're not wanting to knock on that door and draw attention. Who is this guy? What was going on? Shooting? Is he going to go down the alley? They're trapped. What do? He's scared. But then the shooting stopped, and eventually he goes out into the alley. And he sees Laura, and she's down, and she's not moving. He stays away from her. But he sees Michaela, and she's been shot and injured. The door opens. They go in the house. He calls his dad, and his dad comes down to get him to take him 1 block. He was so scared. And when his dad shows up, he hugs him. They came down here and told you their stories and cried. And then you heard from Hope. Remember Hope? They were going toward her house. And Hope says as they approached the house, she saw a gold-colored SUV stop. And a gun came out the window. And she thought it's a BB gun or a paintball gun. And she thought someone was playing a game. And then they started firing. And when they started that, Michaela turned and ran. And Lauren, she saw her fall. She ran into the backyard and couldn't get in her house. Eventually, she was able to go back into the alley. She ventured out there. Michaela's been shot. Michaela was bleeding. She stayed away from Lauren. Lauren wasn't moving. She said she went through therapy for a year and a half. Finished the therapy. She'll be all right, won't she? I wouldn't tell her. None of us should. She'll never be all right. Therapy's not going to help. You heard from Crystal, didn't you, after that? Crystal was with them. She sees an SUV stop, sees a gun, and hears noises pop, pop, pop like a firecracker. Michaela runs. Lauren falls. She goes in the backyard. They can't get in. And then one of the bravest things I think I've ever heard anybody do. She knows they've got to get in. She's thinking someone may come. So what does she do? She runs back into the alley where the shooting was. She had seen the vehicle leave. She doesn't know where it is, but she runs down that alley past a fallen Lauren. Never looked at her, is what she said. Ran to the next street, over to Hope's house, banged on the door, got the door open, and then got the patio door unlocked so the other kids could come in and find safety. Her grandmother always picked her up at Hope's house, and she picked her up then. Does she have any lasting effects? Oh, yeah. She said different things trigger those memories, but especially when she's outside and the car drives by slowly. The car drives by slowly. She has to stop, sit down, and breathe. 4 people, 4 12-year-old children. And folks, they are victims. They are victims of this man. Oh, they don't have physical scars. They've got the mental scars. And they'll stay with them. After they testified, we brought you Michaela Smith. Michaela's something special, I think. She's the victim of aggravated assault. Now, I want you to know that. Aggravated is just another way of saying cold-blooded, okay? Cold-blooded assault. State doesn't have to prove to you why this man would go out there and shoot. We don't have to prove it. But I'll tell you why he shot Michaela. It's clear from the evidence, and everybody except his expert witness understood it. What did he say in his statement? Numerous times. What was the first time? She always walked by herself. I've been thinking about maybe shooting her. But this day I looked and she was with 2 black girls. And I said, hell, we ain't having that. So I grabbed my gun and took out. Took out after her. Why? because she's with two black girls. He's a racist. If Mommy would give him the money, he'd have the tattoos. So he takes that gun, goes down. What does Michaela say? I've been friends with Lauren since the 3rd grade. We were good friends. We joked with each other, spent time together. What was Lauren like? Oh, she was kind. She was open-minded. She was positive. Great description of a 13-year-old girl, given from a great 13-year-old girl. That's how old Michaela was. She saw Lauren across the street after school and called her name. Lauren turns, sees Michaela, sees Kyra, waits for them to come over, and they start walking down the north entrance to Fountain Gate Apartments toward what turns into the alley on Tower, not realizing as they're walking along, this man is staring at them, watching them, having something triggered. They don't know that he's running down to his truck when he sees them to get in it, or to his SUV. And he's going to drive down to the end of the block, meet them. Michaela says she waited. Lauren waited for them. They walked together, laughing, just talking to each other. Reminiscent of the fact school had just started and they didn't have any classes together, and that made them both sad. And then Michaela said she kind of fell behind Lauren. She and Kyra fell behind her because Lauren was going to go down to Trinidad and then go see her boyfriend who was in the high school that was ways away, and he was going to meet her there. They were teasing her about that. And then Michaela sees this man pull up in a vehicle, and the window come down, and he is white, and he has shaggy hair. He's about 17 years old, and he has a big nose, and he made eye contact with her. And then he turned around and came out with a gun, pointed it at her, pulled the trigger. She was shot. Now that's different. That's different from his version. She wouldn't leave her friend, so I put a couple of bullets in her. Remember, that's what he told the police. But you know from professional tests, you know from other things he said, you know he will lie. And you know in this situation, he did lie because Michaela knows where that first shot went. The first shot went into her chest. She turned to run, and then she heard numerous shots, and she was concerned. None of them hit her that she knew of. And when the shooting stopped, she turns, she's in pain, she can't breathe, but she's worried about one person, Lauren. And she sees Lauren on the ground. He had driven off. What did she do? And this is why I say you got to respect this 13-year-old girl. Right? You know, I put people on kind of levels as I meet them, and she goes at the top level. 13 years old. She is trying to put up a good front for people. She's concerned. Were you worried about dying? She was at. I was worried about Lauren, her friend. That's the kind of friend Michaela is. I'm glad the last person who called out Lauren was Michaela, because that name would have been so sweet coming from the girl. She was worried about her. She goes to the hospital, and her brother is there crying, and she feels sorry for her brother and tells him everything's going to be fine. She got a bullet in her, 3 holes, 1 bullet. Everything's going to be fine. She said she stayed happy to make her family feel good. Now that's a special person. There are adults that can't do that. They'd be yelling, screaming, I'm in pain, I hurt. Not Michaela. Sweet girl. To shoot her like he did. He knew what he was doing. No delusion told him, kill that black girl. No delusion told him, shoot her. No evidence of that. She wasn't a part of the delusion. Because it wasn't a delusion. There was just a crime. A horrible crime. And she still has the bullet in her. And she says it hurts her occasionally when she's lying down or moves in a certain way. Someday it'll work its way to the surface and they'll hopefully cut it out and remove it. And she'll no longer have that bullet in her. She'll still have the memories. Okay? Those aren't going away because of him. After those children testified, what can we say about them? Okay? They had strength to come down here and tell you, and every one of them came in this courtroom and shed tears when they testified. It was emotional. But they finished testifying, and then we brought you some adults. We brought you John. Remember John, the war vet, the man who's got a disability, service related, and he was in the backyard getting ready for a birthday party for his daughter. And he was a weapons engineer. Pardon me. He was a weapons engineer, and he can tell the caliber of a weapon by the sound, he said. And he told the police, when they came out there, he gave this report to them, I thought it was a 22, and this is before he sees anyone himself. And he says what? I think his testimony is real important because he's out there, and he hears a shot. And then a second or two later, he hears more shots, numerous shots, for 3 to 4 seconds. And then that's it, and he sees a vehicle drive off and another one behind it. And I'll talk about that, but first of all, let's look at what he heard. A shot to where? Michaela. And then a few seconds later, many shots to Lauren. It's like Michaela told you. That's what he did, shot her first. John knew nothing about that, but his remembrance of the facts follows hers exactly. And it tells you what he was doing out there. It tells you what goes on in his mind. He's a racist. The last bit of evidence we introduced, cell phone report. You can look through this. It's got some text between him and his mama the day after he did his killing, maiming. Second page, here at the bottom, he'd like to research black versus white girl fights. Black versus white girl fights? He's not a racist. Wow. John says he saw a tan or gold-colored SUV through the picket fence of his. The slats are right next to each other, but he could tell the color, and right behind it was a black pickup. And that caused so much confusion for a while. Other witnesses saw a black pickup out there. But he jumped over the fence, didn't go up to his gate. He needed to get to see what happened over there. He jumps over the fence, loses his flip-flops, runs across the street, and Lauren is there with what they refer to in the service as a death stare. Her eyes are open. She's not alive. And it bothered him. Bothers him still. He cried in the courtroom. He waited when the police came out. He did all he could do, is what we're told. You heard from Sarah after he testified. And what did Sarah say? She picked up her 9-year-old from nearby grade school, comes down Tyler, going to make a turn on Trinidad. And as she's headed toward the stop sign at Trinidad Street, she sees a young, heavy-set boy running fast. And she could tell he wasn't just running, he was scared. She could tell from the look on his face, the way he was running. She looked around for bullies if they were chasing him. What's going on? She gets to that intersection, looks, she sees a girl laying at the entrance to the alley. So she stops to see what she can do. Can she help her somehow? And she gets out and she goes over to her. And she said her eyes were open and she had a wound at the top of her head. She said they were bright blue eyes. And she knew she's not going to answer me. But she asked her, "Are you okay?" And the answer was nothing. Because she had nothing. Her eyes were staring at nothing. And she said they were bright blue eyes. She'll always remember them. And she was clutching a binder, the school binder. And then she looked, and there's Michaela walking toward her. So she ran toward her, and then other people were coming who could provide some medical care for Michaela. So she stopped and called 911. And you heard that call. She was excited. There was a lot of chaos out there, a lot of noise. Nobody knew what was going on. Just the two girls had been shot. And where is the guy who did it, and who's he shooting next? All kinds of people scrambling around. She made that call. And then she stayed until Lauren's parents arrived. And all she said about that, "I will remember that for as long as I live," when her parents came up. Next, you heard from Jamie. Well, Jamie told you, she picked up her 4 daughters in grade school. Heavy burden. She's driving them home, gets to that intersection, sees a couple of cars stop, turns, sees a girl lying down at the front of the alley. She's a nurse. She thinks maybe I can help. She goes over to check. There's nothing she could do. She said, "I saw her pretty eyes." And then she checked, and Michaela was there, but she was already getting assistance. So she came back, looked at Lauren, and Lauren's fingers had bone coming out of them, and she knew Lauren had fallen so hard that she had shattered her fingers and the bones came through, and nobody's told her, and I'm not going to. Lauren didn't fall and get her fingers broken. One of those bullets went through it. You've seen the picture. That's what happened. So what does she do? People are coming around. She goes over, gets a blanket, brings it, retrieves the blanket, brings it over, and covers Lauren. And she stays that way until the medical personnel arrive. So you've heard from these 3 witnesses. All of them came in here, all of them cried, all of them shed their tears, told you what happened. All of them told you there's nothing they can do, nothing. Except I would submit to you that without knowing it, they gave the most precious gift you can give in a situation like that. Compassion. Would you agree? Compassion. They stood there, could do nothing, but wanted to do everything, wanted to do anything. When they told the police, they got their names down, and they came down here to tell you what happened. You had no notice of this, no knowledge of it. But they're compassionate, loving, caring people. Then after that, we came to the so-called professional witnesses, I guess. Dale Finnegan, police officer. You know, he was miles away when he got this call. I tailed it over there down that alley, turned on his
camera, in-car video, and you saw the chaos he described out there. People milling around, not knowing what to do. When he first pulled up, cars driving by on Trinidad, a crime scene that needed to be secured and blocked off, and he did that. And he started locating witnesses and getting their names and their information to contact them and sending them over to talk to detectives. He did all this, and you saw that, and then you heard the end of his video. That's my daughter. Remember that? It was screamed out, and you heard it. And Dale says every time he thinks about that, it sends a chill through him. That's my daughter. Could she hug her daughter? No, it's a crime scene. They keep her away. Maybe at the hospital. No, can't hug her daughter. The effect of this man's crime. Then you heard from Kelly Collins, crime scene technician. She went out, looked over the scene, marked evidence, photographed evidence, collected evidence. And you know, she collected a blanket. A blanket, I submit, that had been put over Lauren. And it was full of medical stuff, wrappings, gloves, things that had been used to treat Lauren when the medical people arrived. And you can look at that. It's in evidence. Please use gloves if you do. Please use gloves. But when we opened it to photograph it, to show you those photographs the next morning of what's still in there, the bullet fragment was recovered. Hadn't been noticed before. It had hair and tissue attached to it. She collected the binder, bullet hole through that binder. That's in evidence. You can look at it with gloves, please. It's dangerous stuff. What this man does leaves dangerous residue behind, okay? She marked 15 .22 caliber cartridge casings, according to her general order. Collected up. Then we heard from Hillary Appler, went to the hospital and took pictures of the clothing. It's in evidence. You can look at that. Michaela's real small right now. 2 years ago, I don't know how big she was. Sweet little girl. Lauren was a small child. You can look at their clothes and figure it out. And those are in evidence. And they're photographs, so you can see what they were wearing. You can see the blood on them. It wasn't bloody when they went to school. It wasn't bloody when they entered that alleyway. And then she took pictures of the two girls. You saw Michaela, 3 holes in her, 3 holes. 1 bullet through her breast, into an other breast, and then down into her, where it stays to this day. And you saw the pictures of Lauren, and I don't need to discuss those with you. And from there, Lauren is carted off to the lab, to the crime scene, laid on a cold metal table. Autopsy protocol was begun, and I'm not going to go into that with you. You know what you heard, you know what they did. But what were the results? 15 bullet holes, entry holes. 15. You ever hear the phrase, overkill? 15 bullet holes in an innocent girl. Michaela had 1. She'd have had more if he had more ammunition. Can you imagine bragging to a doctor like that? If I had more, I would have killed her. That's what he told him. Well, he's already rehabilitated, isn't he? He will never be rehabilitated. Sometimes you just get angry about things, pardon me. But you know the results. She had 3 fatal ones, 3 shots that would have killed her no matter what. But you throw in another 12. And the 3 grazies, you saw photographs of them. They look like entry wounds. My goodness. And maybe they were grazies before they entered her body. Couldn't tell us. They recovered some shrapnel, bullet fragments. Sent them over to the firearms examiner there in the Dallas crime lab. And that's it. That happened on a Friday and on a Saturday. No one's caught. So you can imagine in Wichita Falls, what's happening? Can I send my children to school? Can they walk to school? Some mad person's out here. And I don't mean he's insane. When I say he's mad, when I say he's crazy, I'm talking about his conduct. I'm not talking about legal sanity, okay? Because what he did is crazy. But people are worried. What am I going to do Monday? Can I send my kids to school? Some of them have to walk to school and back. I'm worried about them. And the police are looking for him. What do you do to find him? And now this man who loves to paraphrase the Bible, couldn't quote it to anybody, he said, I love the Bible. I've got one for him. Proverbs 26 and 11. Just as a dog returns to his vomit, a fool returns to his folly. And we know on Sunday, September 4th, this dog returned to his vomit, drove right by that memorial that had sprung up for Lauren. That was his undoing. He'd got to go by and see it. The fool had to come back to his folly because Joanne is sitting there with her husband. You weren't there, you don't know how the town feels, but what's going on is what people are saying. And these people say, this little girl got shot and killed apparently by a stranger. There's no closure on that. Oh, there'll never be closure, okay? Not for her parents. You always say, well, there'll be some closure here. They'll find a new way to cope with it. Oh, there's never a new way to cope, only a new way to miss her. But these strangers, they say, if I can go out maybe and see the memorial, pardon me, maybe I'll feel better, or at least have an understanding of what's going on. They're sitting out there, other people are at the memorial, they're waiting. They don't want to disturb these people. Let them have their time. And here comes a gold SUV by. And it's being driven by a younger person, white, with shaggy hair. They say, what? Follow him, she tells her husband. And they do. And he goes to an apartment complex right down the street at the end of Tower Drive. And they see him park, get out, walk around to the other side. And the dog, who's going to return to his vomit, has something under his arm with a blanket covering it, but at the end is sticking out the part of a rifle. And they say, what in the world, and call the police. So the police get alerted to it, and she wrote the license number down on the hand. You got a picture of that. Want to be sure they're talking about the right person. He comes out after just a few minutes, gets in the vehicle, and drives off. So they're talking to 911, and 911 says, don't follow. You know, you don't tell civilians to go follow suspected murderers, all right? And they're telling them, you stay put. we're sending an officer over there, and then they're told, an officer has just entered the parking lot. And we know an officer had just entered the parking lot, okay? But that officer wasn't looking for the people who had phoned it in. He's looking for the defendant. They stop him. They find what? The shell casing in the car when it's searched. They find the bag that he had put the gun in. They go to his apartment that they can connect. And there's a photograph taken out the window showing the alleyway where he could easily see those girls. And the shell casing is sent to the lab with the shell casings found at the scene, and they all match up. They're all fired by the same weapon that came out of the apartment where his parents lived. And then you heard the last bit of evidence, which was a jail call to his mom and dad. I did it. And folks, that's it. That's evidence brought to you by the state. Let me ask you this. Think about Michaela, please. How sweet she is. How caring she is of other people. Think about Lauren. Kind, open-minded, positive, and dead. And when you see innocence in the state of these two girls, defiled and destroyed like it has been, you know something is really, really wrong. And based on this evidence, when you conclude that what is wrong is drug abuse, 11 out of 10 times you'll be absolutely right because he's guilty.
Mr. Preston?
Thank you, Judge.